Welcome to the second installment of our new Commander Spotlight series. Today, by popular request, we're looking at Stannis Baratheon, the rightful heir of the Seven Kingdoms, and a man for whom there is no line that can't be crossed. Out of the two Baratheon base box commanders, Stannis significantly outperforms Renly the charismatic heir, with a distinctly higher win ratio and ELO commander rating. Despite this, Stannis is still the third worst rated commander on A Song of Ice and Fire stats. So let's look at what we can do to maximise his potential and really increase his win rate. Stannis records an overall win rate of 45%, similar to that of the Baratheons as a faction as a whole. He follows the Baratheon trend in that the only game mode which he records a greater than 50% win ratio is Fire and Blood, well known to be the Baratheons' main strength. Their lack of movement mechanics and general low speed is holding the Baratheons back in most other game modes where fighting isn't the number one key to victory. The first question we always have to ask ourselves with an attachment-based on-field commander is what combat unit will help us get the most from our attachment abilities. With an inbuilt critical blow, Stannis brings with him one of the most powerful keywords in the game, but without any access to natural precision, he lacks the true obvious unit in which his combination would become incredibly powerful. This leaves us with a whole range of mediocre choices, and his real issues, as with Renly, charismatic heir, are that he finds no natural synergies inside of the Baratheon base box. For me, the only combination which really gets the most of his potential is in the Bolton Bastard Girls. This unit, when combined with some tactics cards, which we'll see soon, have a very high explosive potential and yet provide a lot of offensive utility. So let's take a look at what these combinations we might be shooting for are and his tactics cards in general. Stannis' first tactics card, Will of the One True King, says that when you claim the Crown Tactics zone on the tactics board, you may replace that zone's effect with one enemy becomes panicked, one enemy becomes vulnerable, and one enemy becomes weakened. This is a significantly useful zone replacement effect. The three different individual tokens are separated, so can be either stacked upon a single unit or spread out across your opponent's army at will. The Crown Zone itself is generally considered one of the weaker zones to take outside of running specific combinations, mostly inside of the Lannister faction. The damage that the Crown Zone does is generally low, and so to replace the Crown Zone is not a significant hindrance. The Crown also doubles up as one of the Baratheon trigger card zones needed to be controlled. So that all looks like a great combination and a good, well-built card. Stannis' second card, Oath of Duty, says that when a friendly combat unit is destroyed, attach this card to a friendly combat unit until the end of the game. While attached, this unit never suffers penalties to morale and may never become panicked. If this is Stannis Baratheon's unit, their attacks also roll +2 attack dice. Again, we have an overtly strong tactics card here. When we attach this to any unit that is not Stannis, this is a relatively low impact to medium impact card. Never suffering penalties to morale and panic can have some specific combinations or specific uses where it will come in useful. But in general, this card really wants to be played onto Stannis himself for the +2 attacks. This will combine very well with our Bastard Girl combination, where he will receive the +2 attacks on both shooting and combat attacks. So this swords play into a shot, into a Sikkim charge will become an incredibly explosive combination in this point. But again, I think that it is not as impactful as it first sounds, and things are generally just stacked against it in that there is a whole nother stage of, do I want to play this over Last Stand, which is in itself a very powerful card. Finally, we come to Stannis' third card, Tactical Approach. With a trigger of start of the round, This card is significantly easier to trigger than the previous two cards. And while it shares a trigger with a similar Baratheon start of round trigger, the other trigger is so significantly weak that we would always choose to play Tactical Approach. Tactical Approach, when attached to a friendly combat unit, lasts until the end of the game. While attached, whenever this unit makes an attack, after defense die are rolled, it may expend a condition token from the defender to deal an additional D3 wounds. If this is Stannis Baratheon's unit, it deals 3 wounds instead of rolling. If we can value a panic token at around 1 to 1.5 wounds, then spending this token instead to do D3 wounds is not a huge gain. Spending it to gain 3 wounds when used on Stannis' unit has a significant advantage. What's more important here is that we are taking a possible increase in damage and turning it into a definite increase in damage. And this increased reliability and no longer being so dependent upon luck is what's going to push things into our control rather than us relying on generally needing to be lucky to achieve what we want. My preferred NCU combo to make Stannis work would be Selyse and Shireen, applying a powerful ability to increase his explosive potential. Our next two of Shira Errol and Axel Florent are effectively our 2 cheapest NCUs available. Coming in at 3 points each, they are very valuable buys. But they also carry good combination potential, with Shira providing the tokens that we need to sacrifice for Tactical Approach, and Axel Florent providing other outlets for those tokens, particularly against the Direwolves, where he will be able to spend a token to kill the dog without any combat interaction being required. A strong combination for 10 points, and I very much warn people away from being attracted towards Melisandre. She does have high damage potential, but I think that in a competitive environment, she is actually a large trap, and you cannot be reliant upon her panic fails, and the sacrifices that you generally don't count will begin to add up. This leaves us with 30 points in a general 40-point game, which we want to buy 5 combat units with. This means that we need to average 6 points per unit. This is generally okay and is a point limit we can work around, but means that we have to be very bare bones on the attachments we use. The Bastard Girls, where we want to put Stannis, sets us off at 7 points, so we're 1 point already over with our first unit. I advise that we follow this up with a pair of Baratheon Wardens. Coming in at only 5 points, these units are very self-sufficient and a very useful road blocking effect, tactical holders, and have an additional token generation system. We're now 1 point below our average, and we can either now follow up with an additional 5-point unit and an 8-point unit, or a 6 and a 7. My preferred choice here would be to add a unit of Cutthroats, who also have high damage potential, leaving us with 8 points to buy ourselves R'hllor Faithful with the Red Priestess. Another easy choice or good combination we can go for is the Stormcrow Archers with the Stormcrow Lieutenant. This provides another good outlet for Selyse and Shireen and a good zonal control. If you're working on a budget, the Baratheon Sentinels are also acceptable in this army instead of the Stormcrow Mercs. The R'hllor Faithful and the Red Priestess can be swapped for the Stag Knights. But unfortunately, the Stag Knights are generally just overcosted currently. They are just a bit too weak, and I think that this is a significant reduction in your power level. This combination can be incredibly explosive, incredibly powerful. Stannis has great potential. He can achieve very high, extreme kind of explosive damage, but it is very reliant upon combinations. And as we know, combinations are the thing that can be disrupted by your opponent. If we are so reliant on a combination of receiving a single tactics card plus using certain NCUs to our advantage, if any one of those stages of the process breaks down, we will find that while our best result can be almost unstoppable, our average result, or the result that we can rely on, will generally be lackluster and weak. If you've enjoyed today's spotlight, then why not head over to the A Song of Ice and Fire stats group and vote on who you would like to see a spotlight for next week. You can join the group on Facebook and there will be a link down below. Until next week, see you later.